started here in just a second. Could I have everybody's attention, please? Thank you all. And just before we get started, a little housekeeping item. If you all wouldn't mind turning off your cell phones, that would be helpful for anybody here that wants to listen to the presentation, and obviously for those that are at home watching. Good morning. I'm Mayor Dan Rizzo, and I want to thank all of you for joining us here to discuss the recently signed host community agreement with our neighborhood partners, Suffolk Downs. Obviously, given the timing of this meeting, I'm sure that many of you have questions due to the information released by Suffolk Downs late last night. Chip Tuttle will get up and talk about some of those things, but I do want to say before he does, let me make one thing perfectly clear. The host community agreement is a legal document. It is a legal document between the City of Revere and Suffolk Downs. It is going to remain in full effect, the same as it always has, right up and through the vote on November 5th. We signed this document with Suffolk Downs, not Caesars. Caesars is a vendor for Suffolk Downs. This agreement will create hundreds of jobs for Revere residents. It will act as a catalyst for future development throughout our city, as we've already seen, by virtue of interest from developers that come in and out of my office virtually on a weekly basis. And it has commitments and guarantees that were made by Richard Fields and Joe O'Donnell, principal partners of Suffolk Downs. My responsibility as your mayor is and continues to be to represent the interests of our residents and protect the interests of our community. I strongly believe we have done that with this host community agreement. In order to make sure we all have as much information as possible to make an informed decision, and certainly in light of the events that took place over the last 24 hours, I'd like to now welcome Chip Tuttle, COO of Suffolk Downs, to talk a little bit about not just the provisions of the host community agreement, but what Suffolk Downs' plans are for the future. So, Chip, if you could.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. We're happy to talk about the host community agreement, take any questions, and address any issues about the host community agreement with the City of Revere. As the Mayor mentioned, the agreement is between Suffolk Downs and the City, as is the agreement, our host community agreement with the City of Boston. We had a change yesterday. Clearly, there's been a change in our plan, and we've changed the company that would manage the facility if we are successful in earning a license. What hasn't changed is our commitment to our neighbors in Revere. What hasn't changed is that Suffolk Downs, the entity that's been your neighbor for 78 years, is the entity that is applying for the license and always has been. What hasn't changed is the commitment, all those commitments in our host community agreement, none of that has changed. What hasn't changed is our commitment to build a world-class destination resort that you'd be proud to have as a neighbor. Our commitment to 2,500 construction jobs and 4,000 permanent jobs, good jobs with benefits for working families, with hiring preferences for local residents, that hasn't changed. Our attempt, we hope successful attempt, to preserve one of the area's sporting landmarks and our 78-year legacy as a racetrack hasn't changed, okay? So we are very excited that the information we received from the Massachusetts Gaming Commission indicates that Suffolk Downs will be found suitable for a license. All of the other municipalities in the Commonwealth that have voted, that have had ballot questions on gaming development in their communities did not have the advantage of knowing in advance whether or not the entity would be found suitable. So in our conversations with the Gaming Commission, they were very clear that if we took some necessary steps that will be found suitable, that will happen before November 5th. We feel good about that. It makes sure that the voters in Revere have all the information that they need to make the right decision. And we're looking forward to the next steps in the process and to moving forward. Mr. Mayor, thanks.
Chip, thank you very much. And also, Chip, thank you for being here to help us explain the details of our host community agreement and the change in the operations, or the operational side of Suffolk Downs. I just want to, before I go on and start talking about some of the provisions in the host community agreement, recognize some of our elected officials that are here and want to thank them for being here. Obviously, we wouldn't be to this point had it not been for the legislature and certainly our own state representative, Kathy Reinstein. Kathy, thanks so much for being here. In no particular order, school committee member Stacy Rizzo, school committee member Dan McGuire, City Councilor Brian Arrigo, City Councilor Bob Hass, City Councilor John Correggio, City Councilor Richard Penta, City Councilor Charlie Patch, and City Council President Ira Novoselsky, who's here behind me. I want to thank you, and I want to and in particular to the members of the council, thank you for the unanimous vote of support on the host community agreement with the vote of confidence that you took back the last time that we went through these provisions. I think that sends a very strong signal to the community that it's just not the administration in Suffolk Downs that supports this agreement, but the City Council as well has stood up and got behind it. So I want to thank the City Council for their support and continued support. We wanted to hold this meeting to just further inform our residents, because obviously this is a hot topic in the city. And I feel like we've been talking about this agreement and this project at Suffolk Downs for a long, long time. And in fact, in reality, we have. But as we get closer to the election, where the residents are going to have their say on this project, I feel as though we can't give them enough information or enough reinforcement as to how we're going to proceed. So with the help of our good friends at the engineering firm of CDM Smith, we have a PowerPoint presentation that I believe at least our residents at home will be able to see, and certainly us here in the council chambers will be able to view over here to my right. So we're going to start to go through some of the elements of the agreement. But I think just before we get into specific slides, I want to talk about some of the overall overriding factors that I feel are important to the City of Revere. First of all, this agreement, over the life of the contract, we believe, based on estimates that Suffolk Downs has, economists, and the Gaming Commission's own studies, we believe this agreement, over the life of the contract, is going to be worth over $200 million to the City of Revere. It will give residents here in the City of Revere unprecedented opportunities for employment, with 2,500 construction jobs and 4,000 permanent jobs at its completion. Our own Revere residents, our own people, our own families will have preference for these good-paying union jobs that I know firsthand how much it is so desperately needed in this community. I don't think a day goes by when somebody doesn't come into my office asking about a position, whether it's in city government or otherwise. Under this agreement, Suffolk Downs will spend a minimum of $100 million on goods and services in our local economy. That means Revere, $100 million over the life of this agreement. Unprecedented. And I can't tell you, as I go through the city day in and day out, how many businesses have been actually approached and are in discussions with Suffolk Downs so that they can be positively impacted by this project. There's a lot of excitement amongst our business community out there. I see members of our Chamber of Commerce here today that obviously have a vested interest in seeing this project go forward. And and by the way, I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for their continued support for this project as well. Once the casino is up and running, once this project is up and running, not through the first phase or through the construction phase, it is estimated that the City of Revere will benefit by a revenue stream of approximately $15 million a year. I mean, there is not another project. If you look at it, NECO, by comparison, pays the city $1 million a year. They're our largest taxpayer. This is $15 million a year. And by the way, Revere doesn't have 1 ounce, nothing, of actual tangible construction in our community. That's not to say that we never will. As they grow and expand, we potentially could have, which will further enhance this agreement. It will call for a reopener and will actually be able to actually improve upon what I consider is already an excellent agreement. It will also, as I said earlier, act as a catalyst for new development here in the city, because people, business owners, investors, developers want to be where this billion-dollar facility is. So we're going to move on to the first slide, which was the public input process. We held 5 public meetings with hundreds of residents in attendance. This also included an online survey to allow citizens to discuss mitigation items which they feel are important to the future of this community. Meetings were held between city officials and community stakeholders along the way, with elected officials, with community groups and nonprofits, to make sure that we felt comfortable and that you felt comfortable that everybody had a voice in the process leading up to this signed host community agreement. City officials worked with consultants to formulate this host community agreement. We did not operate in a vacuum. It was not just myself and a few others sitting in the mayor's office to talk about this. We brought in, we've had studies from environmental to traffic to financial. We've done peer review studies with the City of Boston to make sure that we got this agreement right for our residents, and I believe we've done just that. In terms of, we'll move along now to one of the questions that I think is on people's minds. It has to do with transportation and has to do with traffic. It's one of the things I hear all the time. And before I just go into some of the improvements, and we have, we have our traffic experts here from CDM Smith that obviously can answer any questions that people have, but by comparison, the Square One Mall does about 12,000 cars a day. People in Melrose, Saugus were fearful when the Square One Mall was being built. It's had zero impact to those communities other than be an enhancement to their tax base. Suffolk Downs is saying maybe 10 to 12,000 cars a day in terms of traffic. You can fit 4 Square One malls in Suffolk Downs. So if this casino were not to go forward, if this project were not to go forward, if people are worried about the 10,000 cars a day, that number could be magnified times 4 at a minimum. So I think we all need to really think about what this means in terms of not just revenue, but in terms of future projects that could go forward on this site. One of the biggest parts of the Transportation Improvement Plan has to do with what most of you have heard or regarded to as the flyover at Boardman Street. That in and of itself is about $25 million to the developer. Hard to believe that any other development project that could potentially happen at Suffolk Downs would have that developer pay voluntarily $25 million in transportation improvements. Just would not happen. This flyover will eliminate that traffic signalization down at Boardman Street as you come out of Ted Williams Tunnel or head into the Sumner or Ted Williams Tunnel from Revere. It will become a flyover that there'll be no signalization. People can continue on, uninterrupted, uninhibited, to go on with their business and not get tied up at that set of lights that so many of us have had that wonderful opportunity to do. In addition, From my own perspective as mayor of this city and representing all of you, the city of Revere, people have said, okay, well, that's great. Once you fly over the Boardman Street area, that just brings you to Bell Circle. True. You get to Bell Circle much faster. But for those people that are traveling to the North Shore, they won't have to go all the way to Bell Circle. They will go off at an exit just before you get to the curve on 1A, head down to Route 16 where there'll be another set of traffic lights, be able to go west on Route 16 heading toward Plaza Garibaldi, or the old, some of you might remember it as Prime Time. There'll be another signal, another set of signal lights there that you can go up onto Route 1 there, taking traffic completely out of Bell Circle, completely out of Brown Circle at the end of Broadway, and then Copeland Circle, again, which is another major bottleneck for Revere residents because of people traveling to the North Shore. Major, major improvement. There will also be other improvements that have to do with the Harris Street intersection, Donnelly Square, which I know our Beachmont residents that are here are very concerned with, and almost $1 million just in Donnelly Square alone in terms of traffic improvements and beautification efforts. Another $1.267 million to complete improvements at Bell Circle, Brown Circle, and Route 60. Beachmont streetscape improvements that I just mentioned, about $200,000. And then some planning money in the amount of $150,000 for future improvements on 1A and Copeland Circle. So, again, very extensive, unprecedented amount of dollars being spent on a private project for the benefit of our community and our residents. Moving on to the financial terms of the agreement, I already said this agreement could be worth up to $200 million to our residents. There is a whole schedule that has been laid out in the host community agreement. It'll be on the ballot. You may have seen it in the newspaper. It's been talked about time and again, and I do have people here sitting behind me, which I should have introduced in the beginning, and my apologies for that, but some people here that can even expand upon, you know, for those of you that may have any questions pertaining to the financial terms. I know that some have tried to point to the agreement as if it is, you know, some sort of, you know, an agreement that isn't going to live up to what we're saying or our projections, you know, which, again, you can't change what's written in the agreement. Initial payments of $8 million will be split into two $4 million payments due by July 15th, 2014, and then May 1st of 2016. This is before they open. We can't expect Suffolk Downs to pay the city any money when they're not generating any revenues. Payments will be made to the City of Revere of $4 million before the casino opens. On top of that, for each year of the casino operation, Suffolk Downs must pay the city either a minimum payment or a percentage of gross gaming revenues, which again, their estimates are $1 billion. But regardless, whichever number is higher will ultimately result in a minimum of $9 million a year to the city once they're fully operational. As an enhancement to the agreement, if they exceed their numbers, if they go over the $1 billion estimate, at $1.25 billion, the City of Revere will get $1.75 of gross gaming revenues. So if you think about that, that's about $22 million that the City of Revere has the ability to achieve through the success of Suffolk Downs. So as Suffolk Downs goes, the City of Revere goes. If it exceeds $1.5 billion, the City of Revere would receive 2% of gross gaming revenues. That's $30 million. And in a city like Revere with a $150 million budget, and again, our largest taxpayer paying $1 million in property taxes, that is a significant amount of money that the City of Revere could desperately use to provide much-needed tax relief, water rate relief, capital improvements that I know we desperately need. Again, you know, to be able to have the ability to put on 10, 15 firefighters, 10, 15 police officers. You know, we have a couple of them standing here with us right now. I'm sure both of them would tell you they desperately need assistance in their respective departments. So again, this, and by the way, Suffolk Downs continues to pay their real estate taxes, currently at $340,000 per year. So, moving on, the job opportunities. I think we've already talked about the job opportunities. 10% of the construction jobs going to Revere residents, 10% of the permanent jobs going to Revere residents. And I think it's important to say that's not a maximum number. That's a minimum number. If we hit 10%, let's say, you know, of the 4,000 permanent jobs, we have 400 Revere employees working there. And number 401 goes in to apply for a position. They're not going to say, oh, no, Revere already has their 400 jobs. We could potentially have 800 jobs there. I mean, it's unlimited to the extent that Revere residents are qualified to fill these positions. And I'm sure, based on their history of 78 years being in the city, I know Chip, and you know, I know he was already up here, but he could tell you as a percentage of jobs right now that exist at Suffolk Downs, it far exceeds 10% of Revere residents, and always historically has. They are not averse to hiring Revere residents. In fact, that is the goal of this project, to build communities, to build the city of Revere, build the city of East Boston. Revere businesses will benefit, as I said before, with $7.5 million a year of local investment. Suffolk Downs has already been out talking with local businesses about how they could potentially use their services or their goods when they finally open. They're going to spend about $150 million a year on goods and services. So Revere is going to benefit by having at least, again, this is a floor of $7.5 million into our local economy. What does that mean? More jobs. As people get busier, they're probably going to have to bring in more people. So again, it's not just the jobs that will be created at Suffolk Downs. It's the jobs that we're going to create in our own local economy. It's the jobs we're going to create by the collateral investment that we are going to be able to achieve because of this project. People will, again, not just be working a construction job over at Suffolk Downs, but they'll be working a construction job at another site where a potential hotel developer may come in, or a couple of potential hotel developers come in. So this is going to far exceed just what's happening at Suffolk Downs. This transcends Suffolk Downs altogether. In fact, one of the major reasons, quite honestly, and I'm digressing, and my apologies to my team behind me here, but one of the major reasons that I'm so excited about this project is not just about what's happening at Suffolk Downs, but it's what I know it's going to bring to the city of Revere in terms of further investment. Revere, I've always felt, is a first-class, world-class community. And by virtue of this host community agreement, we're going to see that very, very clearly. And the rest of the world is going to see that very, very clearly. So, as we move on, I want to talk a little bit about community improvement projects. And as many of you know, we're breaking ground for a new Harry Delarusso Stadium. I see some of you out here, former football players, track, people that have ran track and so on. That stadium probably needed to be replaced when you were kids. So it's always been a goal of mine to try to replace and give a first-class facility to the youth of our community. And again, not because of this agreement, the city was fortunate to receive a $2.72 million grant through the Gateway Parks program to jumpstart our desire to make that happen. And once again, I want to thank the City Council for stepping up and bonding the other part of that, because without their support, the youth of our community, the thousands of football players and lacrosse players and people who run track and cheerleaders, they would not have this facility. It would not be able to become a reality. But my hope is, if this agreement is passed, that we won't have to go to that bond for the $2 million that the City Council authorized and approved, because Suffolk Downs has said, we will pay you the other $2 million to complete the renovations at Harry Delarusso Stadium. So that is in addition to any money being collected under the host community agreement. These are extras. It's always been a goal of mine, and I know a goal of many of you, again, working along our youth, to build a new youth center. Anybody that's ever walked through the youth center knows that, in my opinion, and in the opinion of Richard Fields, one of the principals of Suffolk Downs, who I asked to walk through that youth center with me, it's not a real youth center. It doesn't have all the amenities and offer the same programming that other real state-of-the-art youth centers have. And, you know, you may know that we've implemented walking patrols along Broadway, and obviously our goal to add more police officers on the street and so on. But to me, one of the biggest things that we can do, if you want to eliminate mischief and eliminate some of the criminal activity out in our streets, is to give kids a place to go. If kids don't have a place to go, they're hanging around the streets. They're hanging around street corners, which oftentimes, you know, can lead to things other than good things, right? So if we give them a first-class facility to get them off the street, such as building a new youth center, that, to me, is one way that we not only satisfy the needs of our young families, but we also satisfy some of our needs for a safer community. So $1 million is being given by Suffolk Downs toward the initial construction, conceptual drawings, architectural plans, and so on, for a new youth center. That is going to help us jumpstart the efforts for a new youth center. Other monies that will come to the city in terms of capital projects will go toward fire apparatus, police cameras and vehicles, the demolition of the old police station and garages to create more parking in and around City Hall and Broadway, a new, much-needed, desperately needed DPW facility, new water meters to help people control their water rates and eliminate the risk of malfunctioning water meters that could in some cases lead to higher water rates, parks and playground improvements, Broadway improvement renovations, so as we continue up and down Broadway. I had somebody say to me, you know, Mr. Mayor, I like what's happening on Broadway, but Broadway doesn't end at Valari's. And I recognize that. But unfortunately, we only have limited resources to do what we can one step at a time. So this, through the host community agreement, will give us the resources to take it all the way up and down Broadway, to bring this new lighting up and down Broadway, to bring the new sidewalk and street improvements and streetscape improvements up and down Broadway, not just within the central business district. It will allow us to do much-needed renovations at the senior center. Our seniors deserve better programming and a first-class facility, just like a first-class facility youth center. And with our new director, Steve Fielding, who's doing a terrific job over there, he's got a laundry list of programs and initiatives that he wants to do to get seniors back to the senior center. He can't do it without money. This host community agreement allows me to give him the resources he needs to give our senior citizens a first-class experience that they deserve. And also, as I talked about, job training, equipment upgrades, and neighborhood beautification projects. These are all things we will be able to undertake in addition to providing tax relief to our residents that I know the City Council is very concerned about. I obviously am very concerned about. We will have no shot at tax relief without some major developments going on in this city. The only hope that we're going to take the burden off of our residential taxpayers is by good commercial development. This is our opportunity right here. And as I say, this is not just Suffolk Downs. Suffolk Downs will be a big part of it, of course, but it's the collateral investment that we're going to get as a result of this project. Aside from the traffic mitigation, as I say, all these payments will be treated as general revenues, no strings attached. This is not part of the monies we're going to get under the host community agreement. So, with that, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce people that have been involved throughout the process in this implementation or discussion and creation of the host community agreement. And I'll start here down at my left. Superintendent of Public Works, Don Goodwin. City Planner, Frank Stringy. You already heard from COO of Suffolk Downs, Chip Tuttle. Our Director of Finance, George Anzoni. Economic Development Director, John Festa. Legal Counsel from Merrick O'Connell, Brian Falk. Our own City Solicitor, Paul Capizzi. And I've already introduced Council President Ira Novoselsky. And I'd like to also welcome City Councilor John Powers. John, I'm sorry if you were here at the beginning. I didn't see you here. Okay. Okay. So in any case, what I'd like to do now, rather than just have them sitting behind me for decorative purposes, they all have something that they can contribute to this conversation. And so what I'd like to do first is open it up to questions. I'll probably direct most of your questions to the person I feel most appropriate to answer, so I can include them in the conversation here. If we get beyond the questions, if they have anything that they would like to add with respect to the agreement, I will ask that they speak up. So first, I'll open it up to questions. Yes?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Charlie Fondo, actually, considering that the new issue regarding Caesar's Palace, and that was the burning out of your casino at Suffolk Down, my major concern is with the idea of $1 billion per year as a revenue return on stream. It concerns me because, number one, Caesar's Palace never had that return. Number two, I don't believe that there's any institution within America that actually generates that money. And considering that we're predicating all our economics on that, do the numbers now change? Because we don't have Caesar's Palace as that branding particular company. So that's my question.
Okay, so for those of you that could not hear the question, I'll repeat it to the best of my understanding. The question was, now that Caesars is out of the equation and the estimates that have been used is $1 billion in terms of meeting or at least accomplishing the goals of the host community agreement to derive the $15 million a year, does the departure of Caesars mean any less of a revenue stream to the city, particularly where there has not been a casino identified in this country that has met the $1 billion threshold, correct?
Exactly.
Okay. Anybody want to take a stab at that? John Festa, Economic Development Director.
One of the things that we were very concerned about was that when we were dealing with this, these estimates, we agree that the estimates were $1 billion. But we took a very conservative approach. No matter what happens per year, we put in our minimums and guarantees that we will get, no matter if the revenues are $1 billion or less than that. The numbers that we will get are $126.5 million, irregardless of what their revenue stream is. So we took a very conservative approach. We looked at, through the public process, getting the issues from various people, community leaders, the residents of the city of Revere. We took those concerns. We estimated what those figures would be. And then we took an aggressive approach in our negotiations. Now, granted, if Suffolk Downs or whatever entity that's operational at Suffolk Downs does well, we do much better. But we look at it at a very conservative approach, as I stated, and we're going to get $126.5 million, irregardless of the $1 billion revenue. So when someone says, you know, there's not monies to go to different line items, we will have the financial capabilities to be able to do unbelievable things in the city of Revere, irregardless of their projected revenues.
So what algorithms are you benchmarking off of? You're making a blanket statement on...
I'm not making a blanket statement. We're making a conservative approach on...
$126 million, and I'm asking you, what benchmarking algorithms did you use in order to get that number? It's a very simple question.
And it's a very simple answer. The answer is that our economic development team, listened to the people in the Riviera, and I'll give you an example. We met with the fire chief, we met with the police chief, what their concerns are, what their numbers are in terms of what their needs are in the future over the next 10 years or 15 years. We figured out what the cost would be in just that one particular area. We determined all the values, and we came up with these minimums. These minimums are not just minimums that we just come up with just out of the clear blue. We looked at very, very closely, not just me, our economic development team. Please let me answer, and I'll answer to you. That these minimums will be able to cover the costs essential for expansion over the 15-year period. Now, granted, I understand what you're saying, and I respect what you're saying. You know, if they do well, we will continue to do, the city will grow in such a major capacity. But just saying, what I'm saying to you, Mr. Rotundo, is that these minimums that we have here, that Suffolk has to provide to the city of Revere, regardless of their success or not success, will cover the major expansions and, like the mayor has stated, property relief, water relief, a number of different items that we could not do if something of this nature didn't occur. So hopefully I'm answering your question.
You didn't actually, because I'm looking for...
I'd like to call, if I could, I'd like to call on Chip Tuttle, who'd like to follow up on John's response.
And not disagreeing with anything that Mr. Festa said. The agreement has mandatory minimums, regardless of the revenue stream at the facility. There are minimum payments. So I believe the number that John quoted is the total of the minimum payments over the 15 years, right?
Yes.
Those are minimums. Our projections have not changed. The projections for this market, for a gaming facility in Region A, whether it's in Everett or at Suffolk Downs or in Milford, okay, the independent experts, not us, looked at the size of the market, and they estimated it between 800 million and 1.1 billion annually. The study that the legislature relied upon to pass the gaming legislation in 2011, right, the Spectrum study, cited the Region A casino in Tewksbury. And in Tewksbury, they said at full build annually, it would be 990 some odd million, okay? So, you know, $1 billion is 10 more million than that. If your facility is right next to a major international airport and very accessible to millions of travelers from around the world, and you were to conclude that that might add an extra 10 million a year, then some would think that was reasonable. But our projections have not changed. And one of the the host community agreement is about impacts. And if the facility is not as busy as anticipated and doesn't generate as much revenue as anticipated, the impacts on the municipality are less, right? So there are mandatory minimums, and then there's a whole area where the more successful the facility is and the greater the impacts, the city rides along and shares in that upside.
So,
Sure, go ahead. You can ask one more question, but then there are some others that have questions. Go ahead.
the other question that I have in regards to permanent jobs within the system, I read within the agreement, it says that the company will make its best efforts to hire 10%. For me, having been a Revere resident longer than we try to ensure that at least a certain percentage of that is guaranteed. When I hear that, having negotiated against partners as a nurse, when I hear best efforts, that's not a guarantee.
Okay, if I could just repeat the question. I just want to repeat the question so people can hear it. The question centers around the job creation at Suffolk Downs. And the gentleman's question is, he sees 10%, and in the agreement it says best efforts. And he's concerned that best efforts does not solidify the actual number of jobs that will actually happen at Suffolk Downs, correct?
No, it's basically whether it is a concrete agreement legally that mandates a 10% hiring of career residents.
Well, just so you know, the city of I mean, and I'll let Chip answer this, I think. Would that be with, or, I don't know, who wants to answer it? Well, I'll have somebody answer it. They can discuss amongst themselves, but Boston's agreement is the exact same way. They cannot say, without knowing who the applicants are, they can't just arbitrarily say, we're going to give you X number of jobs, right? So, I mean, like, they have to know that they're a qualified person to come in. But they're going to do their best efforts to get to that point. But because we have the numbers to back it up. We have the numbers. So who wants to take a shot at that? Anybody?
I'll defer to your counsel in terms of the specific language of the agreement, but you know,
George, if
I think I think we're going to exceed the minimum requirement here, okay, which is 10%. And best efforts is, there are some very specific things that we are required to do. We're required to start recruiting in Revere first. We're required to post jobs here first. We're required to work with the city on job readiness and job training programs. We're going to put out an RFP in a couple of weeks for job readiness partners, okay? Then there are local organizations from Revere that have already stepped up and raised their hand and said, we'd like to be a training partner with you so that Revere residents are ready for these jobs. We have the ability and the commitment to go above and beyond what's in the host community agreement. So I have complete confidence that we'll be able to fulfill that. And the mayor mentioned earlier in his presentation that Suffolk Downs, the municipality from which we draw the largest percentage of our employees now, is Revere. And you know, we're looking forward to that continuing if we're successful in earning a license.
Thank you.
Paul. Okay. Okay, thank you. Councilor Correggio.
Thank you. We already have a signed agreement for the entire package, with all the amenities that go in there, the job and everything, am I correct?
Yes.
The only question I have is, since Caesars withdrew, is there any alternative plan in place since that happened? Because there's been a lot of talk about it, it's been in the news.
In terms of an operator or something like that?
Yeah.
I will, once again, I will defer to Chip Tuttle, okay? Because I think he can answer that question better than I can.
Nobody else on the panel wants to take that one, Mr. Mayor?
Last time I checked, you were the only person representing Suffolk Downs here. So
Thank you for the question, Councilor Correggio. And Councilor, you flatter us with the amount of work we can do in a short period of time. But yeah, we are actively seeking an alternative gaming management partner now that Caesars has withdrawn as our management partner. We'll be looking for one, and we'll have a formal process in place, working with our two host communities, with Revere and Boston, to make sure that it's a partner that's suitable to both host communities and acceptable to our host communities, and suitable to the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. And the Gaming Commission has established some very, very high standards for people to do business in this state, and we're very, very comfortable with those standards, and we're going to do everything we can to meet and exceed them.
As a city council, I will support whatever is necessary to make this thing work. This is good for the city. You've been a good neighbor for over 50 years, and whatever it takes, I want to see this go through, and I wish you all good luck.
thank you very much, Councilor. We had Councilor Powers, I think, had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I fully realize that whether this casino goes to Suffolk Downs, as I hope it will, because we'll certainly benefit greatly from that, whether it goes to another location that's been talked about. As you know, and by Mr. Tuttle's own comments at several traffic mitigation meetings, there will be approximately 3 to 5% of the traffic coming from the North Shore to that facility. That will be coming up probably most of it, through 1A, which is a very narrow corridor right now, and also is very heavily impacted, and will even be further impacted with the development of Wonderland at some point. My question is, what monies have been dedicated to traffic mitigation and beautification along that 1A corridor from the General Edwards Bridge up to Bell Circle, Mahoney Circle?
John, or Councilor Powers, thank you for that question. I'd like to bring up John Doherty from CDM Smith, who was retained by the City of Revere to perform all of our traffic studies, work with the City of Boston in terms of peer review with their own transportation studies, compare notes, and put together a traffic plan that we feel works. So, John, would you mind addressing Councilor Powers' question? Sure. If you want to come up to the microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Powers, there was numerous traffic studies done by a traffic transportation firm called VHB, and CDM was involved in reviewing their proposals. So the city, through their agreement, has arranged to make Suffolk Downs participate in significant improvements all along the route you're talking about, as well as the other places the mayor mentioned. Specifically along 1A, there is funding for additional studies, and then along Route 16, there are certain dedicated funds. So the amount of income the city will get to spend on improvements along that route will be significant. I'm not sure if I answered your question or.
Not really, but basically, you're talking about a study. If this casino does open, it'll come fast, within 18 months, 2 years. And all you have to do is take a ride down to that 1A corridor from the Point of Pines up to Bell Circle, and you realize that right now, that is heavily impacted. It's almost impassable at certain times because of the traffic. And I would just hope that in this agreement, there is some money set aside, not just for a study, but to work to mitigate that traffic down there. We, at one time, with the building of the new garage down there, we had MBTA police officers down there. They're not there anymore. When they were there, the traffic did move along a lot faster, but it's not moving along now. The signalization down there at Revere Street and 1A has to be checked, improved, adjusted, and that's a serious problem for the people who live along there. And that's what I hope and pray will be in that agreement, and monies will be dedicated to that. Thank you, sir.
John, if Councilor Powers, if I could just clarify that. So the 1A traffic route that comes from General Edwards Bridge and heads down towards Bell Circle, the specific route you're talking about, the traffic along that route will be improved by the work that's going to be done along 1A as it continues toward the City of Boston and the Boardman Street flyover. And in addition, the improvements along Route 60 will also lend to better traffic flow along Route 1A. So, specifically what's going to happen is on a daily basis, the work that's done on, the work that's specifically dedicated associated with the casino along the intersections, along Route 60, heading towards Copeland Circle, the traffic route past Suffolk Downs, those improvements will improve traffic flow along 1A. And the various traffic studies show that, significant amounts of traffic related to the casino come through Boston. There's some percentages that will come down Route 1 and may try to, continue either on Route 1 to Route 16, some that may try to continue down Route 60. And there is some percentage that would come out of Lynn and over the General Edwards Bridge. But the improvements that have been studied and designated and are specifically part of the agreement will improve the traffic along 1A. And then there is additional funding in the HCA to further evaluate what needs to be done along 1A. But the point that should be understood here is that the casino will have its busy times, much like there's rush hour traffic leaving Boston, going into Boston. and all the mitigation measures seek to make anything going on with the casino and the development of Suffolk Downs, you know, better than they would be if there was no casino there. But on a day-to-day basis, people coming to and from the city of Revere, people cutting through the city of Revere are going to see an improvement just on a regular basis. So there'll be less regular commuter and rush hour traffic most of the time, and then the mitigation measures attempt to address the extra traffic that would be seen by the casino. But the Council Powers, just to kind of reinforce, the issue is specifically with 1A from General Edwards Bridge to Bell Circle. That traffic will improve because of the improvements on the roads that feed into that area.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty.
John, I can answer John's question. I know specifically what he's talking about is the Revere Street Route 1A intersection, which has been problematic. The draft environmental impact report that was just completed identifies specifically that intersection be further studied and signalization upgrades there to create optimal signal conditions. So that will be looked at, it will be addressed, and it has been a problem area, and it's a priority for the city of Revere.
Thank you very much, Frank.
Council Powers, thank you for your question. And actually, that's an excellent question because it does address transportation, and I think it further highlights how much the city and how many resources the city has expended upon trying to study and address. And I totally believe we've done that. In fact, in private conversations between myself and Mayor Menino, we both feel as though traffic is going to improve as a result of this project, not get worse. And I think that's important to highlight. So, Olivia, do you have a question? Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, you mentioned that Suffolk Downs is planning to help on the development and, you know, of Broadway, past where it's already been. So I don't think this question is going to surprise you, but has there been any study or even an attempt to think about doing something about two dangerous intersections that are right near each other, Central Avenue at Broadway and Park Avenue at Broadway? Not only would this maybe help the pedestrians, but also you have to think about the new school. It'll be very, very dangerous for the children. So that's my question.
Olivia, thank you very, very much for that question. And once again, to try and be as inclusive as I can, I want to turn to my traffic experts here, and I think Frank Stringy might be able to answer this one as well.
Yes, Olivia, regardless of Suffolk Downs project moving forward, that intersection is on the city's top list as a dangerous intersection, especially concerning pedestrian safety. With the new school going in, that intersection will be addressed with more defined crosswalks, signalization improvements, and handicap accessible ramps. So that's going to be a main crossing area for the school, for the new stadium, and it's on the top of the list of for our radar screen to address.
You satisfied with that, Olivia?
Well, does that include, I know that includes Park Avenue, does it also include Central Avenue, which is very close to Park Avenue?
She wants to know if that includes Central Ave as well as Park Avenue.
It certainly does include Central Avenue, and hopefully news will be coming soon. The city applied for a $1.5 million Mass Works grant through the state, and we expect to receive news on that in November, and that will go to upgrading Broadway for pedestrian safety and traffic safety, new sidewalks, streetscapes, and expanding our lighting program on Broadway.
Thank you, Olivia. Kerry from Kinship Floral. Kerry?
Actually, I don't mean to backtrack, and I did want to follow up on Mr. O'Connell's first question. I believe what he was trying to say is that is the projections used in the host agreement solely based off the Caesars grant. And that wasn't my understanding of how you guys came to that number. I was wondering if you could clarify that on how it was actually done minus the grant.
Okay, so Kerry's question, again, this is mostly for people at home, is were these projections made in the host community agreement purely based on the Caesars brand, or is it independent estimates outside and regardless of Caesars' participation in the project, correct? Okay. Chip?
The answer is that and I don't have the chart in front of me, but John Fest, I think at 800 million, is that when it starts to, that right? Okay, so those were done based on not only our input and Caesar's input, but lots of different independent experts as well. So those ranges where the amounts to the city increased dramatically from 800 million up to $1 billion and higher, those remain consistent now as they were then, okay? So what the economists that look at this, at the marketplace, generally look at is the size of the marketplace, the desirability of the marketplace, and friction models that have to do with proximity to other gaming facilities. None of those things change, okay? So the size of the marketplace and its attractiveness to visitors over the next decade remains the same. The friction model can change depending upon circumstances beyond our control. But yes, so I got an interesting call late yesterday from somebody who's been very supportive of our initiative and said if, basically, if he said all the reasons that I've supported this, the jobs, the benefits for my host community, spending with local businesses, our commitment to local road. He said, has any of that changed? And I said, no, none of that has changed. And he said, well, if you're changing the sign on the door, then I'm still supportive. So, I mean, I think that's perhaps an oversimplification, and I was very appreciative of his support. But I think it illustrates what we're talking about is a lot of the underlying base assumptions and commitments here have not changed one bit.
Kerry, thank you. Councilor Penta. So, again, for the edification of people at home, Councilor Penta's question centers around payments not to the city, but to the state. 25% of all gaming revenues are going to go to the state, which is built into the legislation. Just in the case, again, using estimates, because it's not built yet, we don't know any business opening up, just uses estimates. There's no, and based on their estimates, $250 million would go into the coffers of the state of Massachusetts, which in and of itself can be used for programs and different things that are needed on a state level to provide benefits on a state level. So that's one part of it. The other part of Councilor Penta's question has to do with the 6.25% that's going to be set aside and really under the jurisdiction of the State Gaming Commission, who will then be able to, based on need or based on what kind of a case that cities and towns can put up as to why they need part of that 6.25%, how that is going to be doled out. So I don't know who is best, who wants to take a shot at that. Anybody here want to take a crack at it, the 6.25%? John?
I want to answer two questions. One is, when we talked about, I just want to go back just for a minute, then I want to answer Councilor Penta's question. When we're talking about, again, the projected revenues that Chip spoke about, of 800 million to 1.1 million, I want to make sure that the people in this city of Revere, again, I'm going to reiterate, even though that the projections are going to be a fluctuation, whatever that fluctuation may be, good, bad, or indifferent, the fluctuation moves, we will still get $126.5 million. And I want the people to really understand that. Those are accurate figures. Those are figures that are within the agreement. They should base the decision based upon minimums, not expectations, because everything could get better, but we want to take a conservative approach on that. So that's number one. Number two, on the 6.25%, talking to the liaison at the Gaming Commission, John Ziemba, obviously those are based upon impacts. We would be in a very good situation to be able to present a logical argument to gain a good portion of that 6.25% above and beyond what we're getting. So, but it's based upon need, it's based upon impact, it's based upon circumstances. And we're going, as a city of Revere, I can tell you, we're going to be very aggressive, and I know I spoke with Councilor Penta about this on numerous occasions, that we're going to be very aggressive in trying to attain as much funding as possible based upon our needs. If there's more additional impacts that are needed, well, we should go and try to do everything we can to seek those funds, besides the very lucrative deal that we signed with Suffolk Downs on our minimum. So we're in good shape. I think we're whatever the impacts are, we're addressing those impacts from a financial standpoint, and we'll have the ability to be able to alleviate those concerns.
Thank you, John. Council President Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I want to bring up two things. I just want to add on to the traffic mitigation, because I know Councilor Penta and I worked very hard with the team to look at traffic between Donnelly Square and North Shore Road, because everybody knows that coming from North Shore, from Shirley Ave down to Revere Beach Parkway has been terrible. And one of the issues is that Z that people have to take to get onto the Parkway to get into Suffolk Downs area and Stop and Shop. So I want everybody to know that, as part of the mitigation package is $1 million to correct that intersection right where the Sunoco station is. And, the thought is to make North Shore Road go straight ahead and not take that zigzag to get onto Tomasello Road. So that's one of the items that was in the mitigation package where I think is going to clear up a lot of issues. And we're also talking about a sweep coming down Revere Beach Parkway around the basketball court to merge in with this new roadway. So I think that'll take away a lot of traffic from the lights going to Donnelly Square and taking the right onto so that'll be eliminated. The second issue is Bell Circle that was discussed. Now, everybody knows that Bell Circle's the worst. We've tried over 25 years to correct it, and even the state gave up on it. It's just too drastic to do anything with. And the whole idea on this Route 1, Route 16 intersection is to get people away from Bell Circle, to direct them up Route 1. If they want, eliminate Squire Road, eliminate American Legion Highway. So, and then moving up Route 1, we're still talking about widening that to 6 lanes, which, hopefully that's an ongoing thing, because that Copeland Circle, when you come to 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, till about 6, is just as bad as North Shore Road. So things were thought out to make happen, to make the traffic flow better to and from the facility at Suffolk Downs. The second item is talking about Councilor Penta with the 6.25. Everybody has to think also that it's not 6.25, it's 7%. And 3/4 of that comes back to the city that is spent in the city from the state, because they're paying 7% sales tax. And 6.25 go to the state, and eventually 6.75 comes back to the city. So it's not only what we see, it's all these little accessory things that add up that are going to come back to the city one way or the other that we can utilize and help the businesses. So I just wanted to clarify some of those things, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
That's just, Councilor Rigo, 1 second. I just want to follow up on what Council President Novoselsky just said. That's an example of how the city worked with not just the general public, but elected officials to address problems. Council President Novoselsky talked about Tomasello Drive and how that coincides with North Shore Road. And I know maybe some people maybe listening may have a hard time visualizing it right now, but it does create a huge bottleneck, particularly at peak times, by dealing with the ward councilors, dealing with city councilors, we were able to bring that to the attention of our traffic experts, who in turn could address these. And that's why, as strange as it may seem, I keep saying that traffic will actually improve as a result of this project. That's just one example of it. So I think that anybody that's out there that's listening to some people that they just have this thought in their head and they can't get themselves around it that says traffic, 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 all the time, 24 hours a day traffic, they have to really look at the money being spent in this community, or certainly in the vicinity of this community, that's going to have a positive impact on the way that people go to and from our community, in and out of our community. Councilor Arrigo.
Is the city engaging with either the Attorney General or the Gaming Commission to seek clarity on what the impact will be of Caesar's backing out on our agreement as a whole? I know the city of Boston is now kind of looking into what this means for their agreement, and if there's any ability to renegotiate, or I know you mentioned that we wouldn't be, but has the city being engaged the Attorney General or the Gaming Commission? I have another question after that.
Okay, so we'll take the first one first. Councilor Arrigo's question is, has the city checked in with the Attorney General or the State Gaming Commission with respect to what the impact means to the city of Revere with respect to the host community agreement, now with Caesars not being part of the equation, correct? Chip, would you mind?
Yeah, I think the question is perhaps more directed to Brian than it is to me, Mr. Mayor, but our understanding is our host community agreements with both cities remain in full effect, and I believe that Boston would agree with that premise, and that Revere agrees with that premise. The agreements are between Suffolk Downs and the host cities.
Correct. Brian Falk from Merrick O'Connell will follow up on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We just learned about this last night, so we certainly haven't engaged with anyone yet. But having taken a second look at the agreement, I don't think we would need anything more than perhaps a housekeeping amendment at most. Caesars isn't a party to the agreement and has no legal obligations under the agreement. You might find the word Caesars in, I think, a total of maybe 5 times, referenced tangentially. They're referenced as an operator, but they're not a defined operator. The agreement isn't contingent upon them being an operator. And they're mentioned in some of the exhibits regarding jobs at the facility, but only with respect to some programs that Caesars has in place. Again, there are no legal obligations of Caesars with respect to the agreement. All the legal obligations are with Sterling Suffolk Racecourse LLC, which is the licensed applicant and the owner of the property. That's who we entered the agreement with. There's no signature from Caesars on the agreement, and again, Caesars has no obligations under the agreement. So we will certainly check in with those agencies that you mentioned, just to dot our I's and cross our T's, but I don't believe we would need to do anything with respect to the agreement that we have now, other than perhaps a minor housekeeping amendment.
And is the plan for, with the vote coming out in less than 3 weeks, is the plan for there to not be a managing partner at this point, or are we going to, is there going to be an ability, and I doubt there is, given the Gaming Commission strict background checks, we're not going to get somebody in before the vote, so people are going to have to vote on an agreement and on a proposal that has no 25% ownership is up for grabs, and no managing partner, no name on the board, essentially. So is that the intent of Suffolk and the city to go forward and to have no name on the door and have people voting on a project if they don't know who the managing partner is?
Okay, well, I'll just say this. First off, there have been entities interested in being a partner in one of these facilities that have been pre-qualified by the Gaming Commission. I can't say whether or not that Suffolk Downs has had conversations or will have conversations with them, but that certainly is a possibility. The vote that will be happening on November 5th is about us, the City of Revere, authorizing expanded gaming at Suffolk Downs. It does not involve Caesars. That is more, that almost is kind of an internal machination with Suffolk Downs. Similar to if a hotel developer were to build a hotel. There's a lot of developers out there that will build a hotel and then go out and look for a flag. And if they brought in a Marriott and for some reason conversations fell apart, the hotel doesn't go away, they'll maybe bring in a Hyatt to run that operation. So, but maybe to further expand upon that, Councilor, I will turn that, can I turn this to you, Chip?
Sure. No, and Mr. Mayor, I think you did a very, very good job with the example of a hotel operator, right? So if the city permits a hotel at a location and the owner of the hotel switches flags from Marriott to Hyatt, it doesn't mean that the land use question of a hotel on that parcel has changed. Similarly, our host community agreement, as we've covered, is between Sterling Suffolk Racecourse, which is the corporate name of Suffolk Downs, and the city. So that hasn't changed. And the ballot question itself is, you know, Caesars is not mentioned in the ballot question. The question is, you know, do you vote in favor of, and I don't have the wording in front of me, but it's essentially, do you vote in favor of a gaming development at the property known as Suffolk Downs, okay? So those two things haven't changed. Interestingly, Councilor Arrigo, there are folks who don't support this idea and for years have been critical of our gaming management partner and asking us to find a new gaming management partner. Now we're doing that, and those folks are critical of us for doing that. So I would reiterate that the process is in place for the Gaming Commission to qualify people or not qualify people. So we're going to go through that process and be deemed, we have the highest level of confidence that Suffolk Downs will be deemed suitable and qualified by the Gaming Commission to move ahead with this development. And if we find a new partner after the vote on November 5th, that partner will have to be qualified and suitable to the Massachusetts Gaming Commission, and it will have to be a partner that our two host communities of Boston and Revere are comfortable with as well. So the residents have the ability to vote based on how they feel about this proposal right now. And, well, yeah, the residents have the vote, they're voting on Suffolk Downs. Councilor, are you suggesting that there are, okay, no, but I guess so you would approve a hotel at the corner of a certain intersection if it were a Marriott, but not if it were a Hyatt, right? Okay. Well, but so thank you. Okay. I'm glad you. I was trying to get to your point, and I'm glad you clarified. So the investment is still $1 billion. That facility that we have spent years designing and are currently permitting is the same facility. It's still 2 hotels. It's one 300-room hotel in a crescent shape at the entrance of Route 1A. It is a second hotel of 150 rooms. It's the same restaurant program. It is the same program for gaming tables in the gaming facility. It is a different brand that will operate it, okay? But our proposal has not changed. All of those drawings, those renderings that you've seen are all the same. They may have a different sign on the front door.
The brand is going to drive who comes into to the facility. And at the end of the day, the brand is going to drive who wants to come here and whether or not we are going to be an international, or it's going to be an international destination, or if it's going to be less than the desirable place to game.
I would respectfully disagree. If we're investing the exact same amount into the facility with the same plans that you've seen and been looking at, with the same plans that we have on record with the state in our permitting process and with the BRA, then whether it's Beatles or Rolling Stones is not going to take away from the facility and our investment.
Okay.
One last comment.
Okay.
Will the provision that that doesn't allow us to negotiate with Steve Wynn and Everett, will that precede, or will that not allow us to have Steve Wynn come in and be a 24% or even a 4% stakeholder in this plan? Is there any way?
So the question is, because in the agreement, we've agreed not to negotiate as a surrounding community with Everett, would that prohibit the city of Revere from having Steve Wynn as a potential operator at Suffolk Downs, correct? Brian, could you address that?
The provision of the agreement you're talking about prohibits the city from negotiating with anyone other than the owner. And the owner is defined in the agreement as Sterling Suffolk Racecourse, LLC. At some point, and they may still be, Caesars had some percentage share of that LLC. So if some other entity, like a new operator, came in and took up that portion of it, they would still fall under the definition of owner. So the answer is no.
And I know, Carrie, did you want to follow up on that question, or do you have a separate question?
It was the question previously in regards to the agreement.
Yep. Go ahead.
The bus stops gets up again. Suffolk Downs is responsible. Suffolk Downs is the person on the road and the person that's putting himself out in the community in the promises they're making in this agreement. Correct?
That is correct.
Kerry's question, or Kerry's comment was the buck stops with Suffolk Downs. It's up to them to choose the operator. I think I have more of an understanding what Councilor Arrigo was trying to say. Is this going to turn in from a Caesars, which is a high-end brand, to an Econo Lodge, right? And so I understand that question. But the casino, the renderings, everything else that we've seen that they've spent, I know, millions and millions of dollars in developing, that all stays the same. All they're going to be looking for is somebody to come in and run the gaming operation, be able to hire the blackjack dealers and the craps pit crew and all that stuff. They are just looking for an operator. They're not looking for somebody to design a hotel or a casino for them. But I think that was an excellent question. Councilor Haas.
I have a basic question. The Gaming Commission laid a little bit long, okay, as far as who's going to get to me and do casinos, etc. Not the ownership, right? Why did it take them so long to come in and recommend to Suffolk Downs that we're not concluding? I mean, that should have been
So,
2 years ago.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. The Councilor Haas's question, just again, is why did it take the Gaming Commission so long to come in 3 weeks before our residents go out to vote for this thing and deem, that the operator was going to be unsuitable? I'll just say on a personal level, I know this has been a long, arduous process, and the criteria that the Gaming Commission is using, at least from what I understand and what I've been told, is unprecedented. I mean, they are researching right down to the nth degree to make sure that there's never been anybody within the organization that had a parking ticket. I mean, I really believe it's got to that point. But nonetheless, they want to make sure that the process is flawed, that they have somebody that is going to be, above reproach and completely above board, and which is what Suffolk Downs wants, by the way. But to answer the timing of it and why it's taken so long, I don't know who wants to take a crack at that. Representative Einstein, would you like to maybe answer that?
I don't know if I'll answer correctly, but a couple of things that I think are positive about the turn of events, even though it's nothing any of us anticipated, and it makes things, we have to get more information out to the public in a shorter time. But what we learned from it is, one, our Gaming Commission and our law that we just signed into law in 2011 is the most strict law in the country, which we knew that anyway, but this just proves it with the Independent Gaming Commission coming back with this ruling. They basically have said to Suffolk Downs that they are suitable, so that's a positive thing. The host community agreement that this entire council gave a vote of confidence to is signed by, has Suffolk's name on it, not Caesars or any other entity, and all of the councilors unanimously gave a seal of approval to that. I was actually at that meeting as well, Mr. Mayor. When we were debating and creating this law, there was no Caesars involved in this. Caesars partnered, that was their own business partnership with Suffolk Downs. If the Gaming Commission finds them unfit, it again shows how strict our law is, and two, gives us the opportunity to do it right, gives Suffolk the opportunity to do it right. To kind of address some of the comments that, you know, Councilor Arrigo said about an Econo Lodge, I mean, this is going to be the most expensive Econo Lodge in the country. You know, I just need to say that out loud. I mean, you know, we're talking about what the law requires, which is hundreds of millions of dollars of infrastructure improvement, hundreds of millions of dollars to do these things, which we don't require any other industry that's ever set foot in Massachusetts to do. So we have to keep those things in mind. We're not only talking about what the host community agreement is, what the other percent that Councilor Penta talked about that we can apply for impact money, which any community can apply for impact money, that if they show a good case, if they're a surrounding or an impacted community that they can apply for. We're talking about the most strict laws as far as of gambling addiction goes and money for substance abuse across the board. And we're talking about money for community colleges and things like that, and putting people through training in some of these jobs at Suffolk Downs or in any of these gambling facilities that may happen across the Commonwealth. I don't know if I'm answering the question, but I'm, you know, if I'm not. Yeah, I mean, we purposely made it an independent entity, okay? Purposely did this in the legislature to make it an independent entity so that there would be no politics and no shenanigans, okay? They are taking more time probably. I mean, I've done this for 15 years. Have I been frustrating at the time that they've been taking? Sure. But that's why we're here today, and that's why we're able to say, okay, you know, they're not fitting the bill. You know, I mean, I don't know if anyone read what was going on in the account in the news of the WIN meeting. That sounded pretty heated myself, if you read any of that. I know I read it in, I think, the AP. That seemed like a pretty heated meeting with the Gaming Commission, too. The Gaming Commission's come out and said, Suffolk is fit. So Suffolk can just take another vendor. It will be a vendor. It won't be a partner. We're talking about 4%. So the owners have said, the primary owners have said they're going to absorb that 4%, and they're going to go forward. It's been Suffolk, the community agreement that was signed by the city and unanimously approved by every councilor up on here in this city. That was a Suffolk and City of Revere agreement. And I will now sit down.
Thank you very much. Councilor Haas to follow up.
Another 2 years that Caesars was in, right? It took them until 2 weeks before the election, right? So now, that's a negative factor going on. We have to, without question, do what we can to at least explain that regardless of them being involved, Caesars, it's Suffolk down, it's asking for.
Exactly, and you're 100% right. And that's the message we're trying to get out here today. And what Councilor Haas just said, this agreement is between the City of Revere and Suffolk Downs. We have to be mindful of that. This is not an agreement between, Caesars representatives didn't sign one page of this host community agreement. This is between the City of Revere and Suffolk Downs. And so to me, in all honesty, as mayor of the city and someone that's been as close to this issue as everybody here in this room, I view this as nothing more than a Suffolk Downs internal issue. It's not, I mean, if I was Caesars, I'd probably be upset at the state of Massachusetts maybe. But outside of that, it means nothing to the City of Revere as far as I'm concerned. Our host community agreement is fine and intact and will be intact as of November 5th. So, Councilor Guanasso?
Mr. Mayor, in the namesake of gaming, it makes no difference what the name is called. Who knew of Foxwoods? What individual ever knew that Foxwoods existed? They came and grown. Never heard of Mohican Sun. They came and grown. The namesake means nothing. In fact, associate this as you were in a condominium. Caesars has one condominium in a unit of many. They can be replaced at any particular time. They were just a namesake. And as far as the scrutiny placed by the commission, it's great. But there's none other that ever existed in the entire world that let these people be so scrutinized as they have been. So, look, that's a great saying for our legislators to put such a package together. But did anyone ever question how Fox was got their funding? From Malaysia. Now, who knows where that money came from? Was there anybody out there being critical of that system? Who cares? You know, it comes in the whole package. Suffolk Downs has been an entity in our community for 78 years. There's been no hint of fraud, corruption ever existed in that location. It's been a gaming institution for years. It's been a place to go to enjoy yourself. They are the proper owner of this license. And I think that we have to go out and dispel these falsehoods that there's some bad thing happening in our community. And we have to know what the name of that brand is. All due respect, I love Councilman Regal, but I've been witnessing in a long, long time in the gaming industry, and I've been viewing it and part and parcel to it. In terms of litigation, nothing is so severe that will be placed upon this location. But then I represent Ward 3. In fact, I can go honestly out and tell the community that I represent Ward 3, and I would never let anything happen to Ward 3 or my city that would be detrimental to it. As far as the traffic mitigation, it's not going to happen. Go to these casinos. See how many cars are going in at the same time. 10, 20, 30, tops. You're not going to get 500 cars going in at once. It doesn't happen. And for those people who are suggesting it does, I want to test this, because I've been to casinos for several years, several times, and I'm not ashamed of that. Good people go to casinos. There's a lot of wonderful people who are inside those buildings enjoying a quality of life that they chose. And for those handful of people that unfortunately can't handle that burden, are we going to stop everything? Are we going to prohibit liquor? Are we going to prohibit everything in the world that's bad to some people? No, we can't do that. We have to do what's good for the populace, the majority of people. And I think that a casino at Suffolk Downs, in my opinion, if I'd had given the opportunity, I'd invest every last cent I had in that location. I just think it's a great spot for a casino. And I think it's a wonderful institution. If they ever went down and saw some of the hustlers and talked to them, the type of people, they're nice people. And they want to keep their livelihood going. How do we refresh memories? 10, 12 years ago, when everybody had a bumper sticker on their car, reopened Suffolk Downs. It was a travesty in our community when it closed. These people, 300, 400 people were out of, if there were 20 people out of work, we displaced people, their family. It's not good. So I just think that we got a drawback. We leveled with a severe setback yesterday. And I applaud my council friend Bob Hass for saying, why the lateness in this decision? I mean, for God's sake, Suffolk Downs has been mentioned for 5 years ago. Why did the commission wait so long to make their decision based on one individual location and one business? It's unfair to our communities, both East Boston and Revere. I just think now that we have to be good salesmen. And I suggested to my people, and I said it on TV, I told them my opinion. But I also, in my clip, said, it's up to you to vote. Citizens have to vote. But make a constructive vote based on knowledge, not on hearsay. You know, God knows what kind of crime this is going to bring in. God knows God knows it ain't going to do that. And it was recently in the Boston Globe, one thing that was good was an article in reference to Pennsylvania, where that casino was doing well and flourishing. The neighborhood around it was doing well. So, and that place is called Parks. And that was previously known as Philadelphia Park. And that was going downhill. The whole area around it was going downhill. The casino brought them all back, put people back to work, and the city's thriving. So anyway, I could go on forever in this because I feel I have quite a background in this particular field, and I have a lot of knowledge because I did it. I practice it. I've done it. I'm not listening to somebody else that tells me what's good for my community. I'm telling you, it's a good thing for our community.
Councilor Gonasso, I'm going to restate everything you just said, okay? Well, let me at least say the highlights before I call on School Committee Woman Stacy Rizzo. I just want to say, because there was there were many, many, many good points that you made, but I want to just hit on a couple of the highlights. And the first one that jumps out at me is, you know, the notion of people getting upset because Caesars wasn't deemed suitable is really, it's not a big deal whatsoever. Because, you know, while nobody knew who Foxwoods or Mohegan Sun was 25 years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, who doesn't know who Mohegan Sun and Foxwoods is today? The name up on their casino is irrelevant. It really doesn't matter. What matters to us is what type of facility, what type of investment are we getting there? And now, between Suffolk and the Gaming Commission, they will make sure that whoever is going to run that day-to-day operation is going to run a good show. And so whoever's sign winds up there, I'm comfortable, because of the scrutiny, as Representative Reinstein said, that's being put on this project, being put on every entity that's going to be involved, we know that whoever it winds up being is going to be having gone through a tremendous process, probably the most strict and stringent process in the country. And so we know whoever winds up there, whoever's name is on the sign, is going to be a first-class operator. So, you know, and, you know, Councilor, I appreciate your continued support on this project, because it's important that we, as elected leaders in the city, get out there and tell people the facts. There's a lot of misinformation out there. You know, people, they see a big no sign and they just think that, that everyone's against it. No, that's a handful of people. It's not, you know, I mean, the lion's share of people want to see jobs come back to the city of Revere, 4,000 permanent jobs. They want to see a robust local economy. They want to see capital improvements happen in this city. It's all going to happen when this project is approved. So, Representative, did you just want to follow up on that? Right. 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 And it is, you know, it is a yes/no vote for a gaming facility at Suffolk Downs. Exactly. Right, right. And all the provisions, it's a vote for the host community agreement or not. Stacy Rizzo. Stacy, did you have a question?
Yes. First of all, I'm not here as a school committee member, but as a member of the community, and to educate myself so I can make the right judgment and go vote on November 5th. But this project has been compared to Parks. And Parks is just about 4 years old, 5 years old right now. In the past year, it has seen 4% decline in revenue. So I think my question is, and they seem to, you know, hearsay is they're trying to negotiate what they give to the town. So my question is, in the host agreement, is there any fine print that says if we're not meeting the projected numbers, is there any word in saying that it could be renegotiated?
Stacy, that just resident Stacy. That. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Kathy. The question was that Parks, recently we've seen positive stories, what I would call positive stories about Parks Casino in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. By all accounts, it has been a tremendous success. Stacy says that last year there was a 4% decline in gross gaming revenues, and that they want to start talking about renegotiating the agreement. I just want to go back to what John Festa said earlier. There are guaranteed minimums, $126.5 million to this city. It doesn't matter what they do, up 4%, well, if they go up 4%, we get more. But they go down 4%, they go down 40%. This agreement stands for the city of Revere that we're going to get $126.5 million. No matter how much people want to try to cut that apart, those are legal facts. I mean, you know, we don't have any judges here in the audience, but I would have to think they would attest to the fact this is a signed legal document. The city of Revere will get $126.5 million regardless whose name is on the building, regardless how much revenue they generate, regardless of any other variables. The city of Revere is guaranteed that amount. Now, we thought it would be wise to share in the upside if they exceed their projections. So as they go, the city of Revere will go also, which I think is a very, very positive thing. You know, there's people out there, we got to remember, there's people that call my office every day. You know, I want, we don't do enough for after-school programs. We don't do enough for kids in this city. We don't do, the van is breaking down over at the senior center. Everyone has these needs and wants. Well, the cruel reality is that we cannot solve these needs without money. And here's an opportunity to take a business that's been in our city for close to 80 years and give them the jump start that they desperately need to bring 4,000 permanent jobs on the periphery of our city. I mean, unprecedented. And probably for the rest of our natural lives, we'll never see that again. We're still talking about NECO, what a great deal that is for the city. 400 employees. We're talking 4,000 employees there that can help feed the families of our own residents here. Nobody in this room can tell me that you don't know somebody that needs a job. Guaranteed. Nobody in here. Okay? We're not at 100% employment here in the city of Revere. We are not. But we could be with a project like this, a $1 billion facility. And not to mention, as we already have, the many, many collateral investment opportunities that are going to exist in this city. So if people want to talk about my taxes are too high, my water rates are too high, can you get my son a job, my husband needs work, can I get, do you have anything part-time? If anybody is concerned about those things, if you do want to control your taxes, if you do want to control your water rates, if you do ever want to have an opportunity to get rid of that heaving sidewalk in front of your house with the tree and the limbs that are going in, cutting into your sewer pipes, this is one way that we can accomplish that by a yes vote on November 5th. Okay?
Everything seems to be first class done. The work the council has put in. I am just asking, is there somewhere in there that says it can be renegotiated later? I know what the minimum is, but
okay,
sometimes
my answer didn't suffice. I'm going to turn that over. I'm going to turn it over to Brian Falk.
Was the question that, do we have the opportunity to renegotiate if they're not hitting their revenue projections? On the point of whether or not they hit their revenue projections or not?
They're not hitting it down the road if it can be renegotiated.
Not on that specific point, although we could amend at any time, but it would have to be by mutual agreement by both parties. There's not an automatic reopener for them not hitting their revenue projections, no. But I think the fine print you're looking for may be the minimum payments, because they have to hit those minimum payments no matter what their revenues are. And if they're doing really well, then we go with the percentages.
So it can be amended?
It could be amended, but it would have to be by mutual agreement. There's not an automatic reopener on that point.
Okay, are there, Mr. McGuire, did you have a question?
It's something that I think needs to be reiterated. Probably the questions I get asked a lot is that transverse the city, asking for one of their 6 votes. Is the racetrack going to run continuously during construction? I've heard rumors that they'll get rid of the horses down the road because the casino's so successful. I think that needs to be reiterated to the public that I believe horse racing is part and parcel of the package and will be protected for the 15-year period that this license exists. So also, I'm glad to hear that the renderings, those drawings that we've had, this does not affect that one iota. So the 2 questions would be horse racing, how it plays. I think it's been downplayed. Arthur and I are great supporters, avid horse racing fans. The people that work there, that live in there, over 250, 300 people that work there today want to know that during construction, are we racing, is live racing going to stay consistent throughout the beginning of the build-out in the future?
So school committee man Dan McGuire His question centers around horse racing, which has been the 78-year business that Suffolk Downs has been involved with. And he wants to know, one, is it going to stay in full force during the construction phase, and will it continue to be a big part of what they do at Suffolk Downs? Now, before I will turn that over to Chip, but I just want to, because I always love to compare it to this, Suffolk Downs is planting 2,200 trees around their property. And for those of you who have ever had the opportunity to visit Saratoga Springs, New York, it is a beautiful, beautiful facility. And that is what I foresee. I think that's what Suffolk foresees in terms of making it not only a wonderful gaming experience inside and with all the other amenities, restaurants, spas, things like that, but to continue on with the long-standing tradition of horse racing in as good of a possible environment as they can possibly make it. So, but to further expand upon that, I'll turn it over to Chip.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you. We have a commitment to racing. It's part of the legislation. So if we're fortunate enough to earn a license, the law says that we have to maintain our racing license while we have a gaming license. And in addition to that minimal commitment, we want to enhance racing at Suffolk Downs. You know, and right now we pay about $105,000 a day in average daily purses, and it makes it difficult for us to compete with places like Saratoga and Parks and others for the top stables and jockeys and horses and things like that. So a percentage of the revenue will be put toward a percentage of gaming revenue in the state will be put towards the Racehorse Development Fund, which will allow us to pay higher purses. And we're also planning capital investments on the racing side, capital investments into the barn area, capital investments into the clubhouse and to the grandstand area to enhance those areas as well. Those are areas that, you know, quite frankly, haven't had a lot of attention in about 20 years. So we're committed to racing over the long term. We're committed to working with our horsemen to make sure that racing can continue during construction. That's actually going to be up to the horsemen and our agreement with them. But we fully expect that we can race during construction. We may just have to work around some things and change some dates, and we're going to have to be flexible to do that.
Mr. McGuire, thank you. And just as an adjunct to what Chip just said, the level of racing is also going to improve. The purses will get much better. The level of racing will escalate, and it will just be a really terrific, all-around, well-rounded gaming experience down there for people who may not like to play blackjack, but as you say, you like the horses and to watch the horses run and so on. So it is going to be, I think, a terrific part of the overall proposal. With that, there's another meeting coming up, so we have just about run out of time. I want to thank certainly everybody here behind me that is here, that joined us to help answer questions. I'm sure they'll be around for a few minutes later if you have questions. I want to thank all of you here that came to City Hall this morning to hear about our proposal, our Suffolk Downs' proposal, and to hear about the details of the host community agreement. I also just want to add one final piece that I think we failed to talk about, and that is within the confines of the host community agreement, we have this big parcel of land in the city of Revere that we all know as Wonderland Dog Track, and there is a requirement for Suffolk Downs to perform a master plan for that site as to what is going to best suit the needs of our community for that 36-acre parcel. So there are an awful lot of extremely beneficial portions of this host community agreement. And, you know, so I hope everyone just takes the time, because as I said before, if you're interested in tax relief, if you're interested in water relief, if you're interested in the multi-million-dollar revenue stream that this city stands to gain as a result of this project, then certainly you'll be voting yes on November 5th for this project. I do have one more councilor that had a question, and I just want to recognize Charlie Patch, Ward 6 councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just here to listen, but Danny McGuire brought up a good point about the hospital. As people know, I worked many years in details down Wonderland. My wife was a part-time waitress there
devastating when she got the phone call, don't come to work no more, after 22 years.
Alive here with the casino, and I just and Wonderland was like 80% Revere workers too working there, and I just don't want to see it happen again, because I know if they do not get the casino, it's going to be very hard for them to continue on their budget to keep horse racing here. I might be wrong with that, Chip, but that's my feeling. But I got one, the question I got is, all these revenues that you are speaking about, that the city of Revere are going to gain, the people out there got to realize, this is a one-shot deal. They got to realize, it probably is going to be a one-shot deal. They got to think hard if they want these revenues or they want to overcome the impact, or they're going to, if they both know, we might get we'll probably get the impact anyways without the revenue. So I just think, I hope the people out there really put some thought into this, and they come out and vote, and give the city of Revere the opportunity to grow. Thank you.
So just to reiterate, I just want to, before we go, I just want to reiterate, Councilor Patch, because I know we didn't have a roving microphone. My apologies to all of you that had questions for not having that available, but hopefully my repeating the questions have been helpful to people that may be watching this at home. Councilor Patch had talked about how his wife worked at Wonderland Dog Track for many years, and how he, as a retired police officer, worked details at Wonderland for a long, long time, and how devastating that was when Grade 2K came about and that racing was forced out of Wonderland Dog Track, and how many people lost their jobs as a result. And he doesn't want to see that happen to people right now that are working at Suffolk Downs. If this project does not go forward, if we do not vote yes on this on November 5th, it's not just the jobs that we could gain, but I can almost guarantee you, based on my conversations with ownership at Suffolk Downs, that they will close that track. They are currently losing money every year, and that people that work there now will lose their existing jobs. So we'll go from a job creation mode into a how are we going to help these hundreds of Revere residents that now will be put on the street as a result of this facility closing. The other thing that I think Councilor Patch alluded to is if we do not vote for this, and this facility winds up in Everett, the city of Revere gets nothing. Okay? But how far away is Everett? I know, by way of Councilor Patch's ward, part of there's one street in Ward 6 that goes right directly into Everett. It's right there. And I believe Ward 4, Park Ave, goes right into Everett. Everett will gain all the benefit. The city of Revere will get zero. So these are things for our residents to consider. Do we want to see a casino go to Everett, where they voted 86.5% in favor of a casino, at a location where, in my opinion, isn't really what I would call suitable? Or do we do we vote yes on a neighbor that has been here for 80 years at an existing racetrack with Revere people already working, and make that a $1 billion facility? So the choice is going to be yours on November 5th. I hope you all go out, and I hope that this explanation of this host community agreement has been helpful in hopefully guiding you down the path of supporting this very, very historic project here in the city of Revere. And I want to thank all of you for joining us here this morning. Thanks so much.